And then point here is, as Buddha himself said in his sutras teachings, many times he said, we have different mental dispositions, the mental dispositions. Although, at the basic level, our yearnings, longings, or desires are similar, but in the surface, we have different mental dispositions, different abilities, different interests, and so forth. So when you come to choose the Buddha Dharma as your spiritual path, it is very, very useful, helpful, you to go to different Buddhist traditions, teachings, before you are committing with one tradition, a particular tradition. Listen, read, give time to yourself. Read the books, listen the teachings, the different traditions. For example, they traditionally saying the Theravadan traditions and the minor traditions. Then, of course, these days, there are within the Theravadan traditions very authentic, very long-term, well-established, like from Thai tradition, Burmese tradition, Sri Lankan tradition. There are different traditions. And within the minor traditions, the Zen, the tradition, Tibetan tradition, and Chinese Buddhist tradition, there are different traditions. Not necessarily, to spend long time, but at least to read one or two, books from different Buddhist traditions. That way, your mind will be, more open to the different traditions. Helpful in that way. Of course, then later when you do your, listening, reading, participating, through that, then when you find, okay, these different Buddhist traditions, this one suits me for this and this and this. Get the reasons, that way, approaching that way will benefit to yourself in two ways. The first, because of reading, listening, participating, all these different traditions, you don't need to go every single Buddhist organizations. I'm not saying that, but these kind of major spiritual traditions, read. What you get, you will later, when you choose your own, the Buddhist tradition, you will not feel that kind of bias, that kind of narrow attitudes, and that is very, very helpful to your own spiritual development. Also, another benefit is later, when your spiritual path is, gradually cultivating, you will have this, because you have studied, read, listened these different traditions. These different traditions, Buddhist traditions, have a different emphasis on different subjects, on different topics. For example, as you know, I'll give you an example. In the Theravadan traditions, overall as the Theravadan traditions, they emphasize on mindfulness meditation, for foundation of mindfulness meditation. Amazingly useful, to cultivate mindfulness. The Tibetan Buddhism, yes, we have a meditation, we have this for foundation of mindfulness, but not that strong emphasis like Theravadan Buddhism has. Which is very, and some of the, the meditation which in the Tibetan Buddhism, teach and emphasize, but not in the Theravadan Buddhism. So what you have, your own spiritual, tradition that you follow, but you can pick up some of the, the meditations, some of the techniques which are not emphasized in your tradition, you can pick up from the other traditions, then fill the gap. And very, very helpful. So that is the another point which I would like to share with you. Now then, going for refuge. Going for refuge. Two levels. As a follower of Buddha, and within the follower of Buddha, then if you choose the Mahayana tradition, then as we read today, this morning, those 4 lines, the refuge, going for refuge according to the Mahayana traditions or Mahayana spiritual path, if you are following that. So I would like to talk on those two levels, going for refuge. Now first, I want to talk here is traditionally in the scripture it is said two courses going for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma and the Sangha. In other words, the mind, that strong, deep, strong mind going for refuge, to experience, to have within ourselves these two causes. These two causes are important to have. The two causes are these: understanding the nature of our present existence, this life that we have. That understanding, that full understanding of the nature of our present existence, that's the first cause. And the second cause is understanding Buddha, Dharma and the Sangha. So these two understandings are the main causes us to have the mind going for refuge. Going for refuge is a mind, a strong, clear mind. It is not as some kind of blessing. It is not some kind of commitment. It is a mind. A mind, so to have that mind going for refuge, these two understandings are crucial. Stronger, clearer, deeper we have these two understandings, the mind going for refuge will be stronger, deeper, and stable. So that is something which is important. So I want to talk first those two causes. Then if we understand the two causes, then mind going for refuge itself is not that difficult, to talk. It is very much common sense, when we understand the two causes. So I want to talk first on those two causes. Now the two causes, I'm going to talk on the basis of, many of you know, Buddha's first teaching. The historical Buddha's, after his enlightenment, his first teaching, as you know, called Four Noble Truths. So on that teaching, from that teaching, we will understand those two causes very, very clearly. The nature of our present existence, and Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So his first teaching, the Four Noble Truths. First two Noble Truths. Noble Truth of suffering and the origins of suffering, explains the first cause, explaining the nature of our present existence, and the Noble Truth of origin of suffering, Noble Truth of cessation of suffering and origin of suffering, and the Noble Truth of path, or the way which leads to that cessation. Last two Noble Truths will give us understanding of last two Noble Truths, will give us the understanding of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So here, when I use Buddha, I'm not necessarily referring to the historical Buddha. It can be, but I'm just general Buddha. So last two Noble Truths, Noble Truth of cessation of dukkha, or suffering in English, suffering and the origins of suffering, and the Noble Truth, last Noble Truth of path which leads to that cessation. Understanding of these two Noble Truths will give us the understanding of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So his first teaching, Buddha's first teaching, the Four Noble Truths. If you are seriously interested in Buddhism, not necessarily to want to become Buddhist, but really want to know what is the main teaching? What is the main teaching? What is the main practice in Buddhism? Read the Four Noble Truths. That will give you very precise, very accurate answer to that question. And also people who seriously, and people who already have taken Buddha Dhamma as your spiritual path, I would strongly suggest you to read, contemplate, study the Four Noble Truths. Even if you are practicing some of the highest Buddhist practices, still, I'm sure, this studying, contemplating, reading, the discussion on this subject, Four Noble Truths, will benefit your spiritual journey.